Welcome to the Sunrise, everybody. Glad you could be here. We have some guests this morning, and we have a great aggressive program, some fun stuff. But let's start out as we typically do with a prayer and the pledge. So please rise, and I'm asked Charlie Conklin to lead us in such.
How about in Christ's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's keep Don Ammons in our thoughts and prayers, and a special intention for him today. Steve, just always know that we're always thinking about him. Before we feed the pig this morning, I'd like to take just a moment to introduce a few guests that we have. Uman has a guest this morning. If you could introduce your guest, and maybe she can make a few comments. And Troy is bringing the microphone around so we can be inclusive of you remote attendees, guys.
This is my friend Heather Morris, and I'll let her tell you a little more about herself.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I have lived in Vestavia for about 3 years now. My husband is from here. I moved here from Ohio. I have 2 kids, one at East Elementary, one at Vestavia High, and they get along really well, even though their age difference is a little far off, 9 and almost 16. So, but they're the best of friends. I've been in healthcare marketing for a little over 18 years. So when I moved here, I kind of went out on my own and have just done some consulting and some little projects on the side. But I'm working on getting my insurance license. And throughout my entire life, I've been a member of Kiwanis up until recently, till my move. So I'm excited to get involved with another community organization. So thank you.
Welcome. Also, we're going to introduce our speaker in a moment, Steve Jones, but he has brought a couple of his colleagues with him. And I'd ask Steve just stand up and just take the microphone and introduce your 2 colleagues.
First, I'll introduce Lauren Muncher. Lauren, stand up, Lauren. Oh, you are standing. Lauren is the naturalist over at Oak Mountain State Park. And to her right is Mike Ezel. Mike is the Alabama State Parks naturalist emeritus. That means he's like me, retired and an old guy. But I view Mike as being my personal naturalist, and that we take advantage of both being retired and have a love of the outdoors and to get out occasionally across the state. So welcome both of you, and thank you.
Hey, we're glad to have you. I have to mention this, Dr. Russell has joined us, not to call him out, but we're so glad to have you this morning. And yes, sir. Yes, sir. So let's go and let's feed the pig. Troy is going to walk around. Please speak into the microphone so our remote attendees can hear you. Happy dollars, prayerful dollars.
Grateful to be here and grateful for my friend Alan Stevens who invited me to join.
Happy Thursday and happy Shelley joined.
This is a prayerful dollar. A friend of mine, Scott Weisberg, his daughter, Jessie, is a senior at Mountain Brook and was diagnosed with lymphoma. And so she's having a tough time right now. So keep her in your prayers.
I'm grateful to be here and to meet my Vestavia Hill friends.
Just $1 for the happy day.
As a Tennessee fan, I've given up on college football, so here's $1 for my undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, go Steelers. There we go.
Happy Thursday.
From myself and Lauren,
Happy Thursday.
One in honor of Don and one in memory of Harold Sox, who was the chairman, the executive director of the Republican Party, who just passed away.
I haven't passed in for a while, so I'm throwing in some money. But that's, I don't know if it's in memory or not, of my 12 years in Alaska. So I hope to hear today.
Happy for our families.
Andy can celebrate the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to celebrate the New Orleans Saints and their wonderful win last Sunday night.
This is that Lori has a new, Carrie has a new parking lot for Greg Ruff, who continues to help my parents on a daily basis. And thank you all for keeping my dad in your prayers.
Thank you, everybody. That's a lot of profound thoughts there. So thank you very much. And thank you, Troy, for being the microphone holder. I do appreciate it. As you know, always like to have a member spotlight where we can. And today, our member spotlight is one Bob Wadhams. Bob, I guess when I was a kid, we had something called Bob the Builder. And with you, we have Bob Wadhams, the bridge builder. And this picture, I guess, pre-beard? With a hard hat on, overlooking a really challenging bridge project. I asked Bob to share with me various pictures of bridges that he's built. And so we look at things very large, crossing large rivers. We look at completions of bridges. We look at urban areas. We look at the foundations being built. We look at smaller bridges that all had Bob's signature on it. And Bob, if you want to take 2 or 3 minutes just to talk about bridge building real quick, don't build the bridge, but just reference that, and I'll bring you a microphone so you can, or you can come up here if you'd like.
This bridge right here is typical of bridge replacement that the federal government has for the last 30 years given states monies to replace old bridges. And the one here, I built about 50 bridges similar to this in Louisiana. They're simple. They run between $200,000 and $500,000 and take about 3 or 4 months to build. The first bridge, the picture of me, that was in Morgan City, Louisiana, and it was a bridge across the Chaffalaya River right here. And the interesting thing here is in the back, that's a pier that's being built. And you can see 2 crane booms, but the smaller crane boom is on a barge. And that's our cement plant. That cement plant was totally riveted barge built in 1904. It poured a little over 3 million cubic yards of concrete. It was completely steam operated. Everything on that thing was steam operated. And it was just as efficient as the plants that you have today, the mixer plant. It could pour 110 yards an hour too, that thing. that bridge was challenging because the two piers in the river both tried to fall over on us. And we made national news. They were afraid we were going to block the channel. This is a navigable channel, but it didn't, and we solved the problem. The other bridge, that one right there, that's over the same river. It's the Atchafalaya River, and that's Interstate 10. Many of you have probably been over that bridge. It goes between Baton Rouge and Lafayette. It's 27 miles of elevated highway. That bridge is only 3/4 of a mile, and that was our contract. But you see the space in the middle. That space in the middle was where the last girders were placed. They were 425 foot, that gap. And we picked 2 girders at a time up, and they weighed a little over 300 ton to close that gap. But when we close that gap, I'm going to tell you this, on a $100 bet, I walked across that girder, across that bridge. Okay? 3/4 of a mile for $100.
And he's still here.
I'm still here. It's a little over 100 feet off the water. And thinking about it today that I'm 80 years old, I was nuts. I mean, it was really an experience. And then the guy says, I'll double your money if you walk back. And I says, no, I'll take the crew boat. But that's my bridge building experience. And that's Whiskey Bay, the channel. And
Thank you, Bob. Yes. So we learned how to build bridges today, and I'm gonna get Dr. Russell, and he's gonna teach us how to build feet in a future meeting or whatever. So again, thank you all. Thanks for bearing with me as we try to learn our members every single meeting. Troy, thank you for your team this month. Next month, Ed, you repeat. I know he's remote right now, probably driving to work. So don't wreck your car when I mention that you're twice during the course of the year. Birthday yesterday for Garrett. Garrett, happy birthday yesterday. And we've had Charlie's had a birthday earlier in the month, and Chuck's forthcoming. So thank you guys for being so active in our club, and happy birthday to you. Important dates, always like to repeat them over and over and over again. The next 2 Thursdays, we do not meet here as a club with breakfast. We have a board meeting by Zoom next Thursday. We have Thanksgiving, so no meeting the following Thursday. Then we get into the month of December, where Chuck Holmes will join us from WBHM on December 3rd. We have our holiday party December 10th at the Country Club. We are getting menu items out very soon. In a matter of days, we'll send out emails to everybody. Please come and participate. It's a great time. We get to hear Alan perform for us in our cocktail hour, and just have a good fellowship. Then we really pretty much close out the year with Brenda Reed from Public Supermarkets going to join us. Just shortly, it'll be probably a week or so after they actually open up the Publix on Morgan Drive. So it'll be good to hear the Public Supermarkets thoughts, and we look forward to seeing those speakers. And please make a note, particularly for that December 10th date. We have talked about the Forgotten Children's Ministry, our global grant, and Jacob sent a couple of pictures of progress. And I've asked Steve just to come up. We have 2 photos. He can sort of interpret these photos for y'all.
Again, thank you to Alan Stevens for making sure that this happened. But what you're seeing here is the not only their open areas, but the offices for the staff, and then up front, you're seeing all the rooms for the girls, and there'd be two girls per room, which is better than what they have now. They can do it to 3, and eventually they want to do it to where they can potentially have infants. There's a big need for infant care there as well. And you said there was another picture? Them just building, and the interesting thing is that they can't have as many construction workers on site. So normally where they might have 60 or 80 workers to get this done, they're only allowed to have 20 right now. because of COVID. They're still in lockdown. So it's a big deal for the progress has been slow, but it's still progressing. So again, thanks to the club for believing in this project and our first international grant opportunity.
So Troy and Steve will debrief on the side here. I am glad to have a great speaker this morning, Mr. Steve Jones, board member with Alabama State Parks, and much more in his bio. And since Brent spent yesterday out in the wilderness, maybe with the group, I'm going to ask Brent to come and rightfully introduce Mr. Jones while I toggle PowerPoints.
Yes, we took a little hike yesterday, about a 4-mile hike up to King's Chair. How many have been to King's Chair at Oak Mountain State Park? Okay, there's a few of us. Yeah. So I reached out to Steve a few weeks ago to see if he'd come speak. He's a board member with the Alabama State Parks Foundation. And I'll go back to Mike and Lauren. As he said, Lauren's the naturalist at Oak Mountain, and Mike is the former retired naturalist at Guntersville State Park. But their knowledge of trees and plants and my limited knowledge was pretty evident yesterday when they were talking about that. Well, that's a longleaf pine, or that's a maple. What was one of the maple? Red maple, yeah. Yeah, okay. And so it was a very interesting day, and the state parks, especially Oak Mountain, is one of our treasures, and I hope everyone can go out and enjoy and see the true nature and the beauty of Alabama. Now, Steve, Dr. Stephen B. Jones in Natural Resources Management Applied Ecology, and I couldn't pass any of those classes, so I'm impressed. He's a former CEO of, let's see, I'll start over. CEO for the Great Blue Heron, LLC, A Better Tomorrow Through Nature-Inspired Living. He's an author, former CEO. He's been at Fairbanks University, Fairmont State University, Antioch University, New England, Urbana University, University of Alaska, Fairbanks, and former University of the Arctic Board Chair. He is a native of Western Maryland, forestry BS, 12 years as a forest products industry, in the forest products industry, 9 universities, a forester who stumbled into higher education, he's retired and married for 48 years with 2 kids and 5 grandkids. So let's give a warm Rotary welcome to Steve Jones.
Well, thank you. I'm going to use, I often don't like to use this AV stuff because I often stumble and fall with the technology, but I'm assured that I have a true pro who's going to be managing that, and I don't have to worry about it. I'll tell you the 3 most frightening words a speaker can say when he or she stands at the microphone. Anybody have an idea what they are? I'll be brief. It never works out that way. I attempt to follow these 3 areas I'm going to give to you. The first guide for public speaking is stand up, speak up, shut up, and sit down. How many of you remember the Smothers Brothers? Yeah, great comedic act, did some folk singing too. Tommy Smothers said, when you don't know what you're talking about, it's hard to know when you're finished. I'm going to be talking about things about which I know something. And another old idiom for public speaking is if you don't have much to say, don't take so long to say it. So let me go ahead and start. It's already on the Vestavia Hills Rotary. And this is from the website, Alabama's premier place to live, shop, work, play. I like the sound of that. And I would add, and to escape outdoors. I don't know what your outdoor spots are within the city. I found McCollum Park on the website. and to consider living here a life above. The next one. So why me as your speaker? I've been in Rotary long enough to know that sometimes you have to cast a wide net, and occasionally you'll get something you hadn't intended in the net. But I'm a former Rotarian. I've been in Rotary in 4 different states, a Paul Harris Fellow, and I've held the most favorable, the best Rotary chapter position there is, and that's immediate past president. How many past presidents? Yeah, you know the feeling. The next one. We've already introduced our guests, Mike Izell and Lauren Muncher. So the next one. And who is this old guy? And you've already pretty much heard that. I'm a retiree, forester with 12 years in the forest products industry in Virginia, Georgia, and Alabama. I had what my wife calls an early midlife crisis, left that perfectly good paying job, and went back for my doctoral degree in applied ecology. And the next slide, we've made, as a married couple over 48 years, we've made 13 interstate moves, including time in the South here, but not limited to the South. We lived in New Hampshire. That's the left screen image with me standing at the base of Mount Washington on a day that we unsuccessfully attempted to summit. At about 4,300 feet, we reached winds that were in the 70s and wind chill well below zero. We since summited it on another day. And on the right, that's me in Fairbanks, Alaska, with a temperature about 30 degrees below zero. The next one. Spent 35 years in higher education administration. I reported directly to the president at 3 universities and served as the CEO at 4 other universities. And the next slide, I've got what I consider to be old guy wisdom. I went into my own medicine cabinet to figure out how to deal with the COVID-19 restrictions. With the thermometer in my mouth, the blood pressure cuff on, and then some of my preferred drugs on the table in front of me. And I forget about this isolated at home stuff. I decided that what do I have to lose by getting out on the local greenways to bicycle in fresh air, nice breezes? And since the COVID restrictions, I've logged about 1,900 miles on my bicycle without wearing a mask once when on the bike and in the fresh air. The next one. And I have grown to believe that nothing is more important than being able to enjoy nature for me. And furthermore, nothing even comes close to being as important as enjoying each other's company and relishing being privileged to have 5 grandchildren. So all of it to me revolves around the nature of life. The next one. Oh, that is the next one. And I've made a discovery in retirement. I've learned how, in writing and publishing my own books, how to make a small fortune. The only requirement is that you start with a large fortune. Yeah, if you're ever thinking about writing a book, and unless your name is Clive Cussler or Michael O'Connelly or a number of others, and you're looking to make money, look again for something else to do. I get great enjoyment out of it, and I look at my books, which I have back there on the table, and I'd be happy to sign them for you. But I look at it as a way to help leave a legacy for these 5 grandkids and whatever kids they happen to have. So the next one. And I do my writing and speaking under the banner of my hobby company. I call it a Great Blue Heron. And there's a story there, why Great Blue Heron. In effect, that wonderful, magnificent bird is the avatar for my now long deceased father. And there's a story in that. And I publish weekly blog posts on what I call nature-inspired life and living. That's my tagline, if you will. These blog posts, again, I issue them weekly via email, and they cost nothing, and it's easy to unsubscribe. If you want your name on my distribution list, Brent has 2 sign-up sheets. Use your best 5th grade printing so that it's legible and I can enter it into my database, please. The next one. Every time I believe as an accomplished naturalist and doctoral level applied ecologist, every time I think I have new wisdom to offer, something that others had not thought of before. For example, up there where it says, Steve, I have published my writing and extolled that every lesson for living, learning, serving, and leading is either written indelibly in nature or is powerfully inspired by nature. And I thought, wow, that's original. And then I found something that Leonardo da Vinci had written 500 years ago when he said, nature is the source of all true knowledge. She has her own logic, her own laws. She has no effect without cause, nor invention without necessity. And Greg, what's that mountain there? Yes, Denali. Mount McKinley, formerly Denali for all time. It's what the natives called it. The highest peak in North America at 20,300 and some odd feet. We could see it from our campus in Fairbanks, but not that close. You had to look far, far to the west, southwest. Next one. Is there any way to move the people? As much as we love those people who are online, there you go. Alabama State Park's mission. The most important part of the mission up there is to extend, from my perspective, the same for Mike and Lauren, is to extend the public's knowledge of the state's natural environment and also to preserve unique natural features. There are a lot of other things the parks do, but that's most in line with my own personal interests. Next one. 21 state parks. You own collectively 47,000 acres of Alabama's finest terrain, finest ecosystems. Don't read them. Next one. And no, back one. And my favorite park is whichever one I happen to be visiting yesterday, Oak Mountain State Park. The next one. We'll start at the Golf State Park, an exquisite piece of the world. That's Sam the Pelican on the pier with me. The next one, just the stark, exquisite beauty of sand dunes, harsh climate, but at the same time, the kind of climate that brings people to Gulf Shores by the thousands or tens of thousands. And as a forester, next one, something about the pine, longleaf pine savanna, an ecosystem that's fire maintained, drew my attention when I was down there walking the trails. And the next slide, Deepwater Horizon oil spill, a nasty disaster. But as a result of the settlement funds, over $100 million was poured into Gulf State Park to rebuild a world-class lodge. And that's our naturalist at Gulf State Park standing beside the rehabilitated nature center. And from sea level to Mount Cheaha, how many of you been to Cheaha State Park? Okay, most of you. 2,407 feet, roughly 18,000 feet shorter than Denali, but in its own way, still very special. And the right image is from the exit road looking back at the top of Cheaha Mountain. Next one. And this is from Rock Garden near the summit on the rim at Cheaha State Park. And in the image on the left, you can look down the Cheeha Lake, which is about 800 feet below where the photograph was taken. And one time visiting, my wife dropped me off at the lake. She drove back to the top. And I would say I hiked back up to the rock garden, but really what I did was clamber and scramble my way back up. And the view from the right is at the rock garden looking at the Cheeha Range extending to the south into the Talladega National Forest. The next one. Something about sunsets from a top prominent point. I find it inspiring to the nth degree, but also the flip side of that is feeling a sense of absolute humility. I often, when I'm out in nature, remind myself that I'm nothing and that this is the consummate feeling of inspiration and humility. Next one. From sea level to Mount Cheeha to right here in your backyard, Oak Mountain State Park. Next one. This is the intrepid crew from yesterday. We're fully masked, and I spent probably 2.5 hours last night digitally removing the masks. Next. Lest any of you think that these three prominent citizens actually removed their masks for me to take the photo. The next one. And there's your fearless program leader. And the entire time we were out, he was lamenting that he wasn't in his office working, telling us what a tremendous sacrifice it was for him to be out there with us. Is he always such a whiner? He said he wanted to be serving you instead of out there traipsing up and down the hills. This is from, that view was from King's Chair looking to the south. And as we began the entire hike, Zeta had left its signature all over the forest. That's a Virginia pine snapped by Zeta. And that's a large uprooted chestnut oak on the right with the crew standing there. And there are unique natural features in Cheeha, not in Cheeha, in Oak Mountain State Park. This is a sandstone glade, very shallow sand bedrock soils. It's a harsh environment. It tends to dry out. It's exposed to the hot sun. And on it, there are many unusual species. Next one, that's a montane longleaf pine on the left with Lauren standing there. And these photos I took on a prior visit. And on the right is a Boynton oak. It is one that it grows nowhere else except in Alabama. And it's a shrubby little thing, quite content to be there on these xeric soils. And not all the trees are scrubby. There are some towering specimens. On the left is a 38-inch diameter yellow poplar. On the right, Lauren is standing beside a 28-inch diameter loblolly pine. Next one. And there are unusual looking tree forms. It's a viral infected tree with gnarly, almost looks like a stack of monkey heads on the left. And on the right is an oak tree that sustained a heavy hit from a lightning bolt a few years ago and is continuing to live, trying to callus over the wound. The next one. Have you been to the Treetop Nature Trail? Yeah, that's an incredible place. I urge you to get out and take a look at that, if nothing else. Next one. And not only does this old forester like trees, I enjoy wildflowers. That's a Virginia spiderwort on the left and a mountain laurel on the right. Not in flower now, but on a prior visit. And those are actually Lauren's hands with the whole world in her hands. That's a southern toad. Life abounds right here in your backyard. Next one. For the first time in my life, in retirement, I have my own
mission that I took time to write down. I've always adopted the mission of whoever my employer happened to be. My mission is pretty simple: to employ my writing and speaking to educate, inspire, and enable readers and listeners to understand, appreciate, and enjoy nature, particularly enjoy, and accept and practice our obligation to be stewards to this earth. The next one. And a little bit about the foundation. I urge you to look up the Alabama State Parks Foundation website. But the mission is pretty simple: to seek gifts that will support, gifts and donations that will support, enhance park programming, facilities, and experiences. And all of us on the board are dedicated to making the parks more than they are into the unforeseeable future. The next one. This is important. The park system budget draws $0 from the general fund. The parks, all 21, operate exclusively from user fees, campsites, cabins, entrance fees. And the mission of the foundation is to secure resources to do things to enhance the parks and to generate additional revenue to do even more. State parks, the Elk Mountain State Park, 10,000 acres nearly. If you've seen recently in the newspaper the possibility of adding another 1,600 acres. And up there in that wonderful ecosystem, that 13 square miles of public land, there are 9 cabins available for rent. Cabins take about 3.5 years to return the investment in building them. And I would love, as a foundation board member, to see at least another 3 cabins up there on Oak Mountain, but we don't have a magic pot of gold to draw from state revenue. So if there's any way we as a foundation board can help generate the dollars to add cabins, for example, it will enhance the mission of the parks. Next one. Again, I have really nothing original to say. Every time I think I do, I just look in the literature and see that somebody else said it. John Muir, he was a wizard. He said, in every walk with nature, one receives far more than he seeks. So true with me. And into the forest I go to lose my mind and find my soul. I may not have to go into the forest to lose my mind. And everybody needs beauty, places to play in and pray in, where nature may heal and cheer and give strength to the body and soul alike. Next one. Some other state parks, and we're going to quickly go through these. Right in my backyard, Montesano. Next one. Again, this old forester loves big trees, and some of the trees on many of our parks are indeed magnificent. Those are yellow poplar on the left, the white oak on the right. The next one. This is a story worth telling, but I'm not going to take time to tell it now. I'm convinced that every parcel of forest land demonstrates that there is an exquisite intersection between natural and human history. The gentleman and his wife on the right donated 40 acres to the Montesano Park in honor of his brother, William Arthur Wells, who was killed at Leyte Gulf in the Second World War in the South Pacific. That's a trail dedicated to his brother. And I visited with the gentleman and his wife on the right on the 75th anniversary of his brother's death. Those kind of tales are written everywhere in our parks across the forest lands of our state and nation. Next one. Teddy Roosevelt, one of my absolute heroes with respect to nature. We have fallen heirs to the most glorious heritage a people ever received, and each one must do his part if we wish to show that the nation is worthy of its good fortune. And then the farther one gets into the wilderness, the greater is the attraction of its lonely freedom. Next one. Lake Gunnersville State Park. Next one. Joe Wheeler State Park. Next one. The Lodge and Marina at Joe Wheeler. Next one. Massive trees. Both of these are white oaks over at Joe Wheeler State Park. Next one. Buck's Pocket, an isolated canyon that the photo at the left is about 800 feet above the chasm and the creek that eventually drains into Lake Gunnersville. Next one. DeSoto with its tremendous population of falls. The next one. Lake Lurleen, about 10 miles northwest of Tuscaloosa. Next one. Cathedral Caverns, and just up the road, Rickwood Caverns. Beauty, magic, wonder, and all below ground. Next one. This is the last slide, by the way. And I believe in 5 verbs that guide my thinking about nature. Number 1 is to believe that there's magic hidden out there in plain sight that's invisible unless one looks. And by looking, I don't mean just glancing while you've got your earbuds in, but looking hard enough to actually see. And to see at a level of detail that's deep enough to evoke feelings that include appreciation, inspiration, dedication, and obligation to act in some manner that will benefit future generations. So I urge you to know your state parks. You own them, visit them, support them. John Muir said, experience the throbbing and pulsing of the heartbeat of God. That's what we have at our fingertips. And visit the Alabama State Parks website. And from Teddy Roosevelt's advice, each of us must do our part if we wish to show that this is paraphrased a bit, that the greater Birmingham metro area is worthy of its good fortune. I'll be happy to sign and sell books. I'll be happy to answer any questions if there's a few seconds available. But thank you for your being attentive.
Steve, stay at the microphone. We have time for a couple of questions. If anyone would like, I'll bring the microphone to you. Yes, Charlie has a question. I'm just curious. You don't need the mic. I don't need the mic. I'm just curious if you've noticed the way the environment's changed.
The short version is the change has resulted in more people on the greenways enjoying nature. And I don't know, Lauren, if you've seen it at Oak Mountain State Park, but probably more people on the trails. I haven't noticed any broad scale changes in the Huntsville area. I haven't noticed any less traffic, except when schools were closed. We didn't have that. One thing I've noticed, and this is at a very micro level, is in addition to seeing cigarette butts, cigarette packs, and other normal garbage along the roads, we now see discarded face masks.
Well, if there's no other questions, I'm going to give you a reason not to discard face mask, because we have the Rotary Club face mask that aren't disposables. So we'd like to thank you for speaking to us and give you this cooling towel / mask that can help during these troubled times, and to your guest to provide them to you as well. Thank you guys for being with us. Yes, for sure.
I'll get one of my grandkids to show me how to put this on.
The directions are on there, but all you got to do is look at Garrett Chow, because he's wearing one this morning. So he has his backwards. He doesn't want to show off the Rotary symbol. So But again, with that, we appreciate your time, Steve, and your wise words. So thank you. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will, again, thank you for everybody. Great attendance this morning. Welcome to our guests. Please come back. We are glad to have you. And let's stand and recite the four-way test. Charlie? Things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. Have a great day.